Did somebody say vegan tiramisu? Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest tonight is broadcasting live from Australia, which is why I'm broadcasting so much later than my usual time, because if she did it at 11 a.m. Pacific time, it would literally be in the middle of the night for her. And as much as she wants to be on the show, nobody wants to get up at 3 or 4 a.m. to make tiramisu. She's been on the show before talking about how she, if you will, reversed or manages her MS. She has no symptoms using a very healthy whole food plant-based diet, and she is going to be making a tiramisu. Please welcome Rebecca Stonor. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you again. Thanks for having me back on.
Absolutely. That's the way to get on the show. Just say tiramisu. No, just kidding.
Well, I think you actually found it. I think you were looking through my Instagram feed and you saw tiramisu and you said, yes, let's make that next time. So
yeah, that is fantastic. That's amazing. Not everybody sees every show, which I can understand. I've done, over 700. But if you want to just, before you get into the recipe, briefly tell the story that you told last time, and I can also link to it if people want to watch the whole thing.
Sure, yeah. So just over 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So it happened very quickly. I woke up one morning and I'd lost vision in one of my eyes and I felt really unwell. I had all these symptoms. People with MS would know that the symptoms vary so much between people, but there were a lot of cognitive issues. I couldn't talk very well. It was really awful. I felt so sick. And I had two very small children as well. My youngest was only about 2. So after a whole lot of tests, they diagnosed me with MS. So I had lesions in my brain and my optic nerve that was leading to that eye and causing the vision issues. So I have a background in science. So I quickly started Googling. I know you shouldn't do Dr. Google, but I found that there was a lot of evidence to show that diet and lifestyle led to the diagnosis and the progression of multiple sclerosis. So I pretty much changed everything overnight. I changed from a standard Australian diet, which is very similar to a standard American diet, which would be, milk for strong bones and eat lots of protein and meat and keep your carbs down. So that was the standard Australian diet. And I changed to a whole food plant-based diet. So it's low in saturated fats, because that's particularly bad for people with MS, but it's also I eat fats in the whole form, so I don't have the added oils and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and since then I've been doing really well. I actually had an MRI just a couple of months ago, which showed that I had no new lesions. They call it stable activity. So I have no symptoms, no new lesions or relapses. And actually one of my lesions, it's the first time the neurologist has ever said to me that it looks like it's faded. She couldn't see it on the MRI. So, and on my report, she said, very reassuring, which is great news coming from a neurologist. So yeah, I'm feeling really well.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations. Well, I'll link to it in the chat and in the show notes if people want to watch that very inspiring episode. And since you've been on, you have a book now.
Yes. So people have often been asking me, what do I eat? I've got my Instagram, my Facebook, so I show lots of recipes and lots of ideas, but I managed to create an ebook, which I've printed because I wanted to have a hard copy for myself. At the moment, it's available to download. This is just one recipe, which is breakfast tacos with a chocolate chia dipping sauce. But basically, I wanted to have an ebook that was available, just really quick, easy download. It can be printed. It's it's laid out so that you can just print it like a book. But I plan to have it in a hard copy that people can buy from places like Amazon and whatever. But that's the next step in getting the file ready for that. But it's definitely available on my website. So
great. I put a link. Congratulations. Yeah, the photography is beautiful. Did you do it?
Yeah, I do all my own photography. My husband's a very keen photographer as well. So we have the equipment and the lighting, and my kids are often complaining because I'll create this beautiful dinner and I set up the lighting and I get the camera out and they're like, Mom, it's going cold. Can we just eat it? It's like, no, you've got to get a picture first. So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Do your kids like this recipe that you're going to make tonight?
They do. They love it. They've gone out for the day, so when they come back, they'll get a nice big helping of it. One of the benefits of it too, I mean, we all love tiramisu, and actually, I don't know if you know, the person who created tiramisu, he died recently at the age of 93. It's called the father of tiramisu, and he created it. I mean, obviously, you know, the original recipe involves eggs and mascarpone cheese and lots of white sugar and flour, and not exactly health promoting, and it usually contains alcohol. And obviously this is alcohol free. I do use a bit of espresso coffee, but it's a decaffeinated because my kids want to eat it and I want them to go to bed tonight. So I don't want to have too much caffeine in their bodies. So it's a much healthier version of the original recipe. So,
wow.
and tiramisu, sorry.
Oh, no, that's so interesting that the gentleman that invented it just passed away, because I didn't know it was invented by a particular person.
Yes. A friend of mine just sent me a link to the article. His name was, this is not probably the Italian pronunciation, Edo Campolo. And yeah, it was in 1972 that it was actually created. And it actually translates as pick-me-up, I guess, because it's got the alcohol in the coffee, gives you a little bit of a buzz. Yeah, you can go about your day. So, wow. But I might start getting the cake part ready if that's okay, because I've got to get that in the oven.
Please.
All right, now I'm going to show you my spoon too. Can you see what's written on this spoon? Oh, yeah. Eat
plants, save lives. That's great.
Yeah, I bought it recently. We had the vegan festival in Adelaide. So lucky to have it. And one of the people there, she's called the Laser Shack. She creates things like this and chopping boards and stuff. So I had to buy a spoon for my kitchen. So I'm just going to get some ingredients in. I've got a gluten-free flour. So I use gluten-free flours in this house. This is just a blend that I bought. I try and choose a blend that doesn't have a huge amount of ingredients. A lot of gluten-free flour has like gums and things in it, but I just try and choose one that just has a couple. Saves me blending my own. That's quite a good one. So I'm going to put that in there. Now, just a little bit of almond flour. I don't use too much. I use a lot of almonds in my recipes because they're very low in saturated fat and they're also high in calcium. So I've got a little bit of almond flour that just gives it a little bit more, I guess, a mouthfeel. Now, a little bit of baking soda and bicarbonate soda in there as well. That's the dry ingredients. Just going to mix through. And then I'm going to add some wet ingredients to that as well. So it's a really simple vanilla cake. So in the traditional recipe, they use the ladyfinger biscuits. This is a vanilla cake that I'm going to bake, quite a substantial cake that I'll then slice into battens and we'll create the tiramisu that way. Now, the other ingredients, so I'm using some flaxseed meal. So that's like the egg substitute in this sort of baking. And I've got a little bit of maple syrup. So most of this recipe has unrefined sugars, but I find in this cake, if I use dates or something like that, it ends up too brown. So I wanted it to still be quite white. So just a little bit of maple syrup. It's not very much at all. And a little bit of apple cider vinegar. That just helps the baking powder and everything activate and get a little bit of aeration. One of my favorite ingredients I found recently is vanilla powder. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's actually just whole vanilla beans, dried and ground up. So it's a really intense flavor. And the other good thing is because it's just whole vanilla beans, there's no additives. So there's no alcohol or sugars, anything like that.
I'm the biggest fan of vanilla powder. Once I started using it, I can't go back to extract. They're so inferior.
As if you can get it. In Adelaide, where I'm from in South Australia, sorry, that's just a bit of soy milk that's going in there as well. In Adelaide, I could only find one place and it's called House of Health. It's at the Central Market in Adelaide. And yeah, it's expensive, but it goes a long way. I found that I was going through so much of the vanilla paste or vanilla extract. And now I just got this one jar and it's lasting me forever. So this is just my wet ingredients. Now, I put that into my dry. So this is quite a thick cake batter. Will come together quite nicely. Pull it down a little bit.
I mean, the photography in your book is so beautiful. Like the one, there's a cake and like it's got flowers on it. I think it's the I don't know what it's called, but it's just beautiful.
There's a chocolate cake.
Yeah, it's in the dessert.
I've got a chocolate cake recipe that's based on sweet potatoes. Again, all my recipes are gluten-free. I follow a gluten-free diet, so All of my recipes are made with gluten-free flour. And yeah, the sweet potatoes in there just make it so moist. It's delicious. Now, so I guess this is almost like a muffin mixture, like it's that kind of thickness.
So your tiramisu is going to be round.
Well, yeah, I'm going to do it in a, I guess, a round glass dish, basically, because that's really the only one that I had that was glass. I'm going to put this in my baking dish. But you can do this recipe in individual dishes as well. You could have, like, you know, beautiful little glasses and just layer it up with all the different layers. But I find it looks pretty impressive if you just have one big, beautiful glass dish. So I'm not even going to spread this all the way to the edges. You see that? So it's just a fairly thick cake mix. I'm just going to put that in the oven. Set my timer.
Alyssa says the cookbook is amazing. She must have your book.
She does. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think she's one of my friends from Adelaide. So
Alyssa,
thanks for
her last
watching,
name's
Alyssa.
Winter. Last name Winter.
Yes. Yeah. She's got two beautiful girls who love my food. They came along to the vegan festival on the weekend. Just to eat up a bit. And they tried some of my chai spice pumpkin pie that I did a cooking demonstration there. And the girls, I got this beautiful photo of one of them. She just had it all over her face. It just looked beautiful. But remember seeing my pumpkins I've got left over here from the.
Yeah, I was wondering if those were real or decorative.
They're real. They're called, the variety is called Golden Glow. I've never actually tried them before, but they look beautiful. And I got my daughter to decorate them for me. So I've got a few of them sitting around left over. I'm just get through them eventually and end up eating them all. So now the next layer. So there are three components to this tiramisu. The first layer was this vanilla cake. Then I have a vanilla cream. Now this is going to be made out of, I usually do like a cashew cream if I'm creating this dessert for people who are curious about plant-based eating and might sort of like that sort of higher fat level in their desserts, but I wanted to keep it low fat. So I'm using silken tofu and a little bit of the vanilla powder again, and also white mulberries. So dried white mulberries. They're beautiful and sweet and caramel sort of tasting. I was trying to create this recipe with using a natural sweetener. Dates would have been too dark in color for this particular layer. So I thought, you know, white mulberries, I love them. So I'm just going to blend those up with silken tofu. And the next layer after that is my mocha layer. So that has a little bit of cocoa and a little bit of the espresso. I might just get started on the vanilla.
I know what you mean about dates. They're delicious, but they don't keep things white.
No, they don't. They're going into the mocha layer though. So now I've got some silken tofu. Put that in my Vitamix. So the white mulberries, I had to hide these from my son because he loves them so much as a snack. I said, no, I need those, got to keep those. So you can get them, these come in different colors and textures as well. I don't know if you've tried the one, you can get them that they're quite soft and chewy. These are quite hard, almost crunchy, but they're beautiful. So I'll put those in there. Now again, a little bit, just a half a teaspoon of the vanilla powder. I'm just going to give this a blend. it doesn't take much. It's still very creamy and white. Let's put that into the bowl. This I could just eat with a spoon. I don't know if you've ever done anything with silken tofu, but you can make some beautiful desserts, even a chocolate mousse, just with silken tofu, dates, and a little bit of cocoa. It's really, really versatile. And I do a garlic aioli. I think that's one of the recipes in my cookbook as well. Really simple mayonnaise substitute that hardly has any fat, and yeah, really delicious. So that's one component done, the vanilla cream. So the next layer, I'm not going to wash out my Vitamix because I do so much of it every day.
It's funny when people say they don't like tofu, but tofu doesn't taste like anything. How can you not like it? It's whatever you put in it.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're cooking like a firm tofu as a savory dish, you know, people say, oh, it tastes like nothing. You've got to put all these seasonings on it to make it flavoursome. You think of like plain chicken breast. I mean, that's disgusting, just plain like that. They put all the flavours on it to make it delicious. So, you know, it's the same for tofu. It needs to have a little bit of flavour. So I've got my dates here, my beautiful medjool dates. When I choose these for this sort of recipe, I like to get them really soft. You know, you can choose through the box of dates, and there's some that are really hard. They're good for some recipes if you want them to stay sort of whole, but I like them really soft and caramelly. So I'm just going to take the dates out, the pips out, and then my blender. So yummy. Yeah, I'm one of those people that sits at the date box and I'm sort of sorting through them.
I know you have to, because even when they say pit it every now and then, and that'll damage your blade, you got to squish them.
Yeah, yeah. You know, sometimes if I'm doing a recipe that has lots and lots of dates, I'll count the seeds and I'll count the dates and make sure I've separated them, because it'd just be the worst thing to throw a seed into a recipe and then you just, yeah, ruin your Vitamix and also taste awful. All right. The dates. Now, chia seeds. So this is almost like a chia pudding, really. So chia seeds, they help make that beautiful texture, but have the omega-3s in them as well. So a hit of nutrition. A little bit of cocoa. I've just used ordinary cocoa here. You can use cacao if you wanted that high level of antioxidants. I find cacao can be a little bit more bitter. So just for this recipe today, I'm using cocoa. I do alternate though, depending on what I feel like at the time. Now, just a tiny pinch of salt. There's something about a little bit of salt with chocolatey flavours, works really well. Now I've got my decaf espresso in there. It's just half a cup. And again, a little bit of soy milk. This is just 1 cup. So I tend to use, in our house, we buy soy and almond milk, just depending on, you know, what we want to do with it. But I really like soy. We use Bon soy a lot. I'm not sure if that's one that's available in the US. It's made of whole soybeans.
We probably have a brand, but not that particular.
Yeah, so it's got whole soybeans, and they're certified organic as well. And the only other real ingredient is a little bit of tapioca syrup. Not a huge amount of sweetener in there, so it's pretty much the healthiest option, I think. And it makes beautiful soy yogurt as well. So, all right, I'm just going to blend this one up.
How do you guys like having a nighttime show? This is past my bedtime. Of course, many of you watch when it's not live, so probably like, what's she talking about? How many of you like tiramisu?
So what was in the raw tiramisu? I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, what was interesting is they were in Italy when they were making it, and they had no equipment. It was let me look it up and tell you the ingredients. It looked absolutely beautiful though. It was Chef Ocean, and
I have to try that one.
It blew my mind. You know, one of the things Dr. Goldhammer always talks about with autoimmune diseases, he likes patients to have it, not that he likes them to have it, but I mean, as far as the diseases go, they tend to stay on the diet more because they can be so sensitive to going off plan. Do you find that's the case with you?
Sorry, they go off plan because
if they go off plan, it exacerbates their disease very quickly. Like somebody with high blood pressure may not, feel it right away, but with autoimmune, it can be really like that quick, like one off plan meal. So they tend to stay the course.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't, occasionally I'll go, in terms of off my diet, would be really just having more nuts or more white flour in a bread or something like that. But really, I always stick to whole food, plant-based without added oils. So for me, if I went off the plan, but I've never sort of strayed enough to have a relapse or any more symptoms. But I do know people who, when they've been traveling and they've got MS, they tend to eat foods that they wouldn't normally eat at home because, whole foods may not be available. And they'll get exacerbation of symptoms happening really quickly after that. So it's actually, it's really quite scary. And the thing with MS is that you could wake up one morning and not be able to walk. I've got a friend that was her first symptom. So she has 3 small children. She woke up, went to get out of bed, and actually her legs wouldn't work. So it's really scary, depending on what part of your brain or your spinal cord can be affected as well. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm involved with quite a few groups of people. We have a OMS called Overcoming MS group here in Adelaide, and we catch up quite regularly. And the woman who runs the group, Pam, she's in her 60s. She still runs 5 kilometers every Sunday, and she's super fit. She's got these, huge biceps, and she's just amazing. And she's been on the program for maybe over 20 years. And she's doing really, really well. So, but I find people who cheat occasionally, they'll go out and they'll have something deep fried, or they'll have a little bit of lean chicken. They're the ones that still progress. So if you're really compliant with a whole food plant-based diet that's low in saturated fats, avoiding processed foods as much as possible, I find that people have much better outcome.
Great, thank you. And to answer your question, he made the raw vegan tiramisu out of almonds, raisins, dates, carob powder, ripe bananas, and coconut.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I would use all of those ingredients except for the coconut. So for me, coconut's just too high in saturated fat. I might have coconut water occasionally because obviously that doesn't have any fat, but coconut milk, desiccated coconut, definitely coconut cream I avoid all the time. So it's sometimes hard to create recipes that are centered around coconut, like curries, for example. I've got a recipe in my cookbook that's a whole baked cauliflower with like a yellow curry sauce. So instead of using coconut milk in the sauce, I just use a little bit of soy milk, and that gives it that creaminess. That's all that you need. So coconut. And it seem that every vegan dessert, or if you go out to a cafe, every vegan dish it's just got coconut oil through it.
Yeah, that's what they use, especially in the raw community. The raw community that isn't low fat, like restaurants. It's a shame. It's just a lot of agave too, and nuts.
Lots of nuts. I think raw food is great, and raw diets are probably really good, but it can be really high in fats. And I don't think there are any studies, or if there are, I'm not aware of them, that look at a raw vegan diet that's high fat and see what sort of chronic disease that might produce. I mean, you know that you can be vegan and still get heart disease and different things depending on what you're eating. And just being at the Vegan Festival over the weekend, although it's fantastic because it promotes veganism for animal rights and for environmental reasons and for health, unfortunately, a lot of the food is just not healthy. So
tell me about it. The Veg Fest is the one place you can't get any fruits and vegetables.
That's crazy. I went to the Vegan Festival and, you know, I walk around at lunchtime and I have a look around and I might end up with a salad that's really nutrient dense. There's a place that in Adelaide that does beautiful like kale salads and have black beans and all sorts of beautiful ingredients, but they might use oil in their dressings. So, you know, if I get a salad with a little bit of olive oil, at least I think, well, this is really nutrient dense. It's doing my body good. But yeah, definitely avoid anything with coconut and so much fried food, you know, like it's just all heavy fried food.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's not healthy.
No, not at all. The woman who runs the Vegan Festival here in Adelaide, we got together and we made a sheet that we could take to restaurants that basically said, can you please provide no oil dishes for the community in Adelaide that really likes this sort of food? And it basically listed all of the reasons for not using oil and the health implications and giving them advice on how to create dishes without oil, how to saute onions without oil. And yeah, so we've taken this and whenever we go to a restaurant that provides vegan meals or is a vegan restaurant, we just sort of give them one of these little A4 flyers and just say, can you please give us some oil-free dishes? Because it's so nice. I'm not sure about where you're from, Chef AJ, but here in Adelaide, it's really hard to get an oil-free.
Oh, I think it's hard in any restaurant, to be honest, truly oil-free, you know, because people don't realize that restaurants don't make food to order. They get there early. It's all prepped. They assemble it when you order. They don't cook it, and everything's already cooked with pans. And it's tough.
Yeah,
really tough.
Yeah.
Angela says, have you seen the movie Code Blue with Dr. Sarai Stancic? She's the one that had, I believe it, yeah, I guess it was MS too, wasn't it? It was one of those.
Yes, she had MS and quite, I think she got to a point where she was disabled. She was walking with a stick and she was really, really unwell. Yes, I have seen that movie. It's fantastic. A few years ago, we had a conference here in Australia, in Melbourne. It was put on by Doctors for Nutrition. So they're a non-for-profit organisation in Australia and New Zealand promoting plant-based nutrition to the healthcare industry. So trying to get it out to GPs and surgeons and doctors that plant-based diet can be, you know, perfect for human health. And they put on a conference and the movie premiered there. And I think there was about 400 people and I got to talk on a panel. So there were a few doctors, I think there was a nurse, and there was myself as the patient case study. So I got to say, you know, this is what I'm doing. I've been eating this way and managed to, I don't know if I call it reversed or remission or basically MS has gone away at this stage. If I went back to eating my standard Australian diet, it would come back. So, but yes, fantastic movie. And I just really wish more people with MS would watch it. I find that, I don't know about other communities of people suffering chronic diseases, but a lot of people in the MS community aren't open to the idea of changing their diet.
I sneezed on it. That's the truth. Yep.
Yeah. That's all right. You can sneeze through the screen. It's not contagious. So I mean, I guess that's like the general population. You know, I mean, how many people want to switch to a plant-based diet unless they're forced to? I was literally forced to. It was my only option. I was really afraid that I was going to end up disabled in a wheelchair. I think my neurologist gave me 10 years from diagnosis to when I'd end up in a wheelchair. And having two small kids, it was just, terrifying, absolutely terrifying to think that would be.
Yep. Got a lot of compliments, Rebecca, on your shirt. Do you sell them on your website?
Not yet. Not yet, but I have had lots of people ask me. I wore this one to the Vegan Festival too, and I really need to get some made up. The only other thing I've got on my website is a bag. I've got a bag with my logo and everything on it. So, but watch this space. There will be probably something on there pretty soon. So I'm just going to check my cake.
Yeah. What's the weather like in Australia now?
Well, it's springtime here, so
I don't get, how can it be a different? I just don't get it. How can it be a different season?
we're completely opposite side of the world to
So
you.
weird to me. So when so it's summer when we have winter.
Yeah. You know, the thing that I find really confusing is, I mean, I follow so many people on social media through Instagram and Facebook in the Northern Hemisphere. So when I'm getting ready to eat salads and beautiful, fresh summer food, they're all creating these beautiful, hearty, you know, casseroles and curries and things. So it's like the opposite in terms of what I feel like cooking, but that's fine. That's always a little bit confusing too. But yeah, so it's springtime here. We've had an amazing spring. So this is a Mediterranean climate, usually very dry. We've had a huge amount of rain. Our garden here, I've got a vegetable garden and it's overgrown. Like there is just so much growth at the moment, but it's beautiful. So, but you're in autumn, or you call it fall.
Yeah, we're fall, autumn. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the cake. I can smell it. I wish you could smell it. It's just a beautiful smell of that vanilla. It's so strong. I literally only used half a teaspoon of that vanilla powder in this, and I can smell it. It's amazing. So I might just let that cool for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to slice it. And this is my dish. I'm going to layer it in this dish.
Oh, it's like a trifle bowl.
Yeah. So yeah, you could definitely use individual glasses or a square sort of baking dish or something. And yeah, I don't know. I think when you slice it, I like this dish because you can see all the layers on the side. If you use a square sort of baking dish, you can slice it and you can see those layers as you slice it, which is beautiful too. But yeah, doesn't really matter. It's all about the eating. All right, see if this will slice nicely. Beautiful. I'll just take off this. So yeah, beautiful little pieces of like a cake.
You ever just make the cake just for no reason without all the other parts?
I usually keep some of the end pieces and just smother those in some of the sauce and eat that, or try and fight my children off. Still a bit warm, but it should. Okay. You probably could, if you eat normal sort of whole wheat flour, you probably could use that as well. But I like, yeah, the gluten-free flour blends. A lot of my recipes, a lot of my cake recipes, I will use a mixture of flour. So some of my favorite sort of gluten-free, but as whole wheat as you can get flours are buckwheat. I love buckwheat. And I use a brown rice flour, which is beautiful. So just trying to have, if you're going to have a flour, it's, you know, obviously more calorie dense than eating the whole grain, but I try and have them where they've got, you know, sort of a whole grain that they've blended up to create a flour. Amaranth flour, teff flour, all of those things, usually more nutrient dense.
Ever use millet flour?
Yeah, millet flour. Millet flour is beautiful if you want to have a really crunchy crust. I find millet is, in terms of the gluten-free flours all turn out so differently, but millet has a beautiful sort of crunch to it. So you can make beautiful biscuits. Yeah, or pastry. I've made sort of pastry out of almond flour and millet flour, and it's got a beautiful crunchy crust. So trying to slice this up. I'll just put it on. Oh, this smells amazing. So here in Adelaide, we have a group of people. We catch up really regularly. We're called Plant Powered Adelaide. And we catch up for potluck picnics, and we go to restaurants and we ask them to create oil-free meals for us. So we're catching up in another couple of weeks, and I was thinking of taking this recipe along. So if anybody's watching from Adelaide that wants to come along, we're a Facebook group, and then we get together, share beautiful meals.
That's cool. Hey, Dina says, does the MS Society acknowledge that diet makes a difference in MS, or are they like the Heart Society or Cancer Society and just want to sell the drugs?
Yeah, unfortunately. So the MS Society here in South Australia will talk about diet. Unfortunately, all the neurologists, well, none of the neurologists I've seen have promoted diet as a way of helping. My first neurologist said, no, it won't do anything. You need to take these drugs. It won't hurt you to change your diet, but it won't help you. So now I did take drugs, MS medications to start with, but now I'm on no medications, and I'm just using diet and lifestyle to help. So some of the other things I do, obviously I do stress reduction through meditation every day, have supplement vitamin D. There's a strong link between MS and vitamin D. Low vitamin D levels, and I try and exercise and prioritize sleep. So there's other sort of holistic approaches to being well. So the Overcoming MS program was developed by a medical doctor. He had MS himself, so he's written a book. His name's George Jelinek. If anybody wants to read that book called Overcoming MS, I think there's another edition coming out fairly soon as well. So he looked at all the science, all the evidence around, firstly, how MS develops, what sort of populations have high incidence of MS, and he put together this book and basically reversed his own illness. He also has a book where it's talking about recovery stories. Yeah, I think there's some people in the US who are in that book as well, who basically were wheelchair bound, and they changed their diet and did all these things in their Overcoming MS program and are doing really well. So yeah, unfortunately, I wish the MS Society would promote it more. They do talk about low saturated fat diets, but they don't talk about plant-based diets. They don't talk about the Overcoming MS program very much. So hopefully we can encourage them more and more to think about diet. And there's more evidence coming out all the time. There's lots of studies being done on diet and MS. And it's not just, when I was diagnosed with MS, I thought, it was life-shattering, and it was just awful just thinking that I was going to end up in a wheelchair with two small children. But actually, I thought, what if I get diagnosed with diabetes as well? I was only 40 when I was diagnosed. What if I get cancer? What if I get heart disease? So I thought, okay, well, changing all of these elements to my life will hopefully prevent all of those things from happening again as well. So yeah, they say that the chronic illness rate in Australia anyway is 50%. So 50% of people have at least one chronic health condition, and often they have more than one. So it's pretty scary. Okay, now cake has been cut up. I can see that into my little cake buttons. So now I can do the arranging. My special dish over. Angle that down so you can watch what I'm doing. Okay, so first, a little bit of the cake in the bottom. The shorter pieces work well to start with. Now, a little bit of my decaffeinated espresso mix. So I don't soak the cake in this like you would with a biscuit, because the cake is still a little bit soft. I'll just sort of drizzle a little bit over those cake pieces. So it's really just more about the flavour than anything else. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I've got this beautiful chocolate chia mocha flavoured sauce. I'm just going to basically dollop it over the cake layer. Can be as rustic or as neat as you like. And then another layer of cake. So this would be a beautiful, you've got Thanksgiving coming up there soon, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that'd be a great recipe for that. Okay, a little bit more of the espresso. So I'll put this recipe up on my website. This one's not in my book. This was exclusive for Chef AJ.
Nice.
So I will
yeah, we put it in the show notes too, so thank you.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. Now the vanilla cream. So I want to save most of this for the top, but I'm going to put a layer of it here. So my next door neighbour is coming over in a little while, Julie. She's going to come over and enjoy some of this with me. She's vegan as well. She listened to one of my podcasts that I was interviewed on, and she changed her diet as well, and she's lost heaps of weight. And since then, her family's come on board mostly. They don't have any dairy or meat in the house, and they're all doing really well. But she's a good advocate for changing her diet as well. When I was first diagnosed with MS, I was actually 22 kilograms heavier than I am now. So that's nearly 50 pounds, I think.
Wow.
Pounds measurement. Yeah. So eating this way, you know, it's nutrient dense, but not very calorie dense. So you can eat huge amounts. Obviously, a tiramisu, whether it's plant-based or not, is a little bit more calorie dense. And this is obviously less calories than the traditional tiramisu.
Yet the guy that invented it lived till 93, so.
He did, so it can't be too bad, right?
Yeah. How much of it did he eat, though? That's the thing.
I don't know. I'm not sure. All right, another layer of the mocha. They always say that, don't they? You always know someone who's lived to 100 and they had bacon and eggs every day. And you think, yeah, that's one person. The majority of the people have a heart attack and probably die in their 60s. There's always those anomalies in the world. A little bit more espresso. My kids love this chocolate chia sauce. If there's any left over, they just have it with berries or banana or something, and it's a really great dessert. All right, we're getting there.
Will you be chilling it for a little bit before serving it?
Yeah, definitely will. It's even better the next day. It just holds together better. The cake soaks up all the liquids and it becomes really delicious. But I don't think I'll be able to wait until tomorrow.
Of course not. Nancy says, does your cookbook use a lot of nuts and dates? I've been trying to avoid it.
So I do use a little bit of dates. Not a lot. To be honest, I find dates really, really sweet. And I can't eat too many of them. But if I'm going to use a sweetener, I would prefer to use a date because you've got all the fiber and the nutrition of the date, and it's much better for you. I do use some nuts, but I tend to try and use the ones that are lowest in saturated fats, like almonds, and high in omega-3s, like walnuts. So I try and, have more of the health promoting nuts. You know what? There are some nuts that I actually won't even touch. I don't go near macadamia nuts because they're just too high in saturated fat. Brazil nuts I'll have occasionally for a bit of the selenium. That's good for that. But cashew nuts I do use a little bit, but I don't really like the recipes that, you get like a a vegan cheesecake, and it's got 3 cups of cashew nuts, and then it's got more nuts in the crust. And yeah, I just in my brain I'm kind of adding up, well, that's just way too high in saturated fat, and I just don't want to consume that. So all right, put this out the way. So yeah, in my cookbook, a lot of the recipes don't have nuts, and if they do, it's easier to omit them because it's not a huge component. I had somebody ask me recently who was avoiding nuts for high cholesterol, and yeah, most of my recipes, if it's got nuts, it's easy to leave them out. It's not crucial. Okay, so I don't know if you can see all the layers happening there. Beautiful. On top, I'm going to put some cacao nibs. So these are my chocolate chip substitute. They are just cacao bean that's been sort of probably lightly roasted and crushed. So that's my chocolate chip alternative. They do have a fat component, but I'm using probably 1/4 teaspoon per serve here. So, okay. Now these are very special. I've got a white mulberry tree in my garden, and this year it's had such an amazing crop. When you pick them, I've got a photo on my Instagram. They're juicy and slightly pink in color. They're not completely white, but I've got a dehydrator, and when I dry them, they go really dark, sort of, they're like chewy little bits of caramel. I'm just going to put some of those on top, just mainly.
Now, wait a minute, you have this picture already on your Instagram. How is that possible?
I've been developing it for you.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
I've been practicing and trying to get it right with all the different flavor elements, and
so pretty.
My family have been enjoying it.
It looks like a pecan pie almost, or maybe it's a pumpkin pie with pecans on it. Very beautiful.
That was the pumpkin pie, so the chai spice pumpkin pie. That one's in my cookbook. That's the one I made last weekend for the vegan festival. So Halloween's not a really massive thing in Australia, although it is starting to become much more popular. And because the vegan festival fell on Halloween, I thought, why not just do a pumpkin pie? And actually the pumpkin pie recipe that I developed is very quick to make. I don't know if you've ever made one, but like all the recipes I looked up were baking the pie for 45 minutes. And when you're doing a cooking demonstration, you haven't got that sort of time to wait unless you create one beforehand. But my recipe basically makes the crust, which is super simple, takes 10 minutes to cook in the oven. And then I almost make a spiced pumpkin custard. So I cook it on the stove like you would a custard. It has a little bit of cornstarch to it and thickens. And then I put that in the cooked pie crust, smooth it out, and then bake it for another 10 minutes. So it's really, really quick. And the pumpkin custard is delicious too. Like you could almost eat that by the spoonful. But yeah, really, really easy to make. When I'm developing recipes, I'm often thinking it's a really creative process for me. I had somebody recently, we've got a fairy bread day. Do you know what fairy bread is? Do you have that in the US?
I don't think so. What is it?
Okay. So traditionally, it's something that you'll have at a child's birthday party. It's a piece of white bread, the square loaf white bread, covered in margarine or a butter. And then they're called hundreds and thousands. So a little sugary sprinkle, all brightly colors, sprinkled all over that, and that's called fairy bread. And you normally cut it on the diagonal so you get little triangles.
Do they cook it first?
No. So as all the bread, so just a slice of bread,
wow.
Butter, really soft white bread. So you can imagine absolutely zero fiber in that. And then the hundreds and thousands sprinkled. So that's basically just little pieces of colored sugar all over the top. It's called fairy bread. And although it's delicious because it has that sugar and that fat and everything, it just makes your brain light up, it's just not health promoting. So I had somebody recently say to me, Rebecca, can you create a healthy fairy bread? I did one the other day. I've got a photo on my Instagram where I have like a really solid buckwheat bread, I made a vanilla bean cream made out of just dates, cooked white beans, and a little bit of vanilla powder. So that was my butter. And then I put sprinkles over the top, just bits of cacao nibs, edible flowers, and dried raspberries, and another little strawberry powder kind of sprinkle. So it was really, really creative process.
I see it. It's beautiful. It looks delicious.
Yeah. So we've got a day coming up in Australia called Fairy Bread Day, and it is to promote youth mental health, raise money for youth mental health. So that's what I'm coming up with. I'm going to try and make some of that and take it into my work.
Wow, we never had fairy bread in the United States, but I bet if we did, I would have loved it because I loved anything like that. So we have a nice comment from Ridwana. That looks like an extraordinary dessert restaurant display for vegans.
Ah, there you go. So that's it. You see all the beautiful layers there. I can get a bit closer. You can see all the chocolatey mocha sauce falling down and the beautiful vanilla cream. So you've got the colors and the layers of the cake and the espresso, some of the mulberries on top. So I haven't calculated the fat content per slice, but I'm sure it'll be a very low percentage of the traditional tiramisu. Obviously, it doesn't have the inflammation caused by egg and dairy and all that sort of stuff and the white sugars. So much more health promoting and yeah, really delicious.
Oh my God, it looks fabulous. It looks beautiful. Boy, this is so cool. Now I learned about fairy bread. Now I want to eat fairy bread.
Fairy bread. I'll tell you what, I had it when I was a child at every birthday party I had, and it obviously didn't do me any favors. So I was always overweight as a child, and, you know, obviously later on in life developed MS, and probably wasn't caused by fairy bread, but it was part of my way of eating. And yeah, it's delicious, but we can always do better.
Yeah. Well, SAD can stand for Standard American Diet or Standard Australian Diet.
Yeah, and very much the same. I think the statistics in Australia are very similar to the US in terms of chronic health conditions. You know, number one killer is heart disease. And we also have, I think the last statistic I heard was 62% of Australians are overweight or obese, but that was in 2018. The last statistic. So I'm pretty sure it'll be up around 70% now. So yeah, it's really scary.
That's what we are. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, so no fairy bread.
no fairy bread, no full fat tiramisu. So yeah, I just want to sort of help people, and I create these recipes because my brain is always thinking ahead, like what can I do next? What can I do next? And I just want people to be able to enjoy delicious food without the calories, the inflammation, and the chronic health conditions. You know, it's just when you're diagnosed with something like this and you reverse it and completely change your life around, it's really hard to be quiet about it. And I feel like I've got a sense of obligation now to share it with people. So I do that through my business and social media. And also my family have changed. My children and my husband, we all eat this way. And recent blood tests showed that they had excellent levels of everything. So we can thrive eating this way. We don't have to eat the standard Australian diet.
Complete with fairy bread, who Struthel says is like the crack of the sugar world.
Totally. And for children, you know, like, there has to be a market for healthy party food for children. Yeah. I don't know what it's like in the US, but it's like a kids' parties, an excuse to eat.
They do these smash cakes. The kid is 1 year old, and the kid doesn't care about frosting. They just want to smash things. They could just do mashed potatoes, right. But it's terrible. The addiction to sugar so young here.
Yeah, no, I haven't even heard of that term before, but yeah, it's terrible. And we go to, my son is still young, and he goes to parties in like sort of centers where it's all organized, so it's all catered for, all the foods there, and it's just appalling. He gets the vegan meals, which are usually quite good, but I watch what the other children are eating, and it's, you know, hamburgers and hot dogs, and then it's just ice cream cakes and lollies, and it's so hard once you know what this is doing to their tiny little bodies. It's so hard to sit there and just let them. You know, it's so hard not to say something. And Isn't it? So I try, like you, Chef AJ, I just try and lead by example. I just try and say to people, this is the beautiful food that I eat. I eat huge amounts of food, you know, the salads and things that I take to work every day are enormous. And yeah, it's not about deprivation at all.
Right. Just eat plants.
Yes, exactly. So simple. So simple. So.
Well, thank you so much. It was great connecting with you again. You look great. Your dessert is beautiful.
Thank you.
My
Thanks.
pleasure. And congratulations on reclaiming your health and helping others to do the same.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reach out to as many people as I can and just help them on their journey. So if anybody has any questions, I'm open to them contacting me, and any dishes that they'd like me to make as a whole food plant-based version. If they've got any ideas, let me know. I've done fairy bread, I've done tiramisu. I'm sure I can do the other things too.
Yeah, you're very creative. That's for sure. And then eventually you'll have those wonderful t-shirts on your website.
I will. That's next on my list. So big changes next year. It's going to be lots of things that I'm going to be doing in my business. So yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks, Chef AJ.
It looks amazing. Thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific time, when my guest is Jessica from Fabulous, and she is going to be making falafel. Do you make falafel ever, Rebecca?
I do, yes. Yep. Obviously not fried, definitely baked. Air fryers are fantastic for falafel.
Oh yeah, air fryers are great. I don't know how people live without them.
Use mine every day.
Right. Take care. Thanks for the terrific recipe.
Thank you.